Finding that healing through so many different opportunities in life is what my next guest has made his lifelong avocation. He's done this through several career fields, whether that be through the United States Marine Corps, whether that be through the State Department, whether that be through education, or whether that be with theater. My guest is going to talk about his journey through these different endeavors and where he's winding up today as the founder and CEO of the Veterans Healing Farm. So, Alan Yeck, welcome to the podcast.
Teresa, thank you so much. I do have to I'm not the founder of the farm.
Thank you.
I've been the executive director for finishing or going into my 4th year now.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the correction on that one. I'm going to talk a little bit about that and a few other things. Alan Yeck is a former United States Marine, a Special Intelligence Communications and Information Management Officer. He was with the United States Department of State, Foreign Service, and Diplomatic Corps. Among his postings, he served 3 tours at the American Embassy in Beirut, Lebanon during its 18-year civil war, the American Consulate in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia during Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, which is the original Gulf War, and the American Consulate in Bogota, Colombia during the FARC rebel conflict. I also forgot to say his MOS was 2651, Company L, Marine Support Battalion, NSGA, Guantanamo Bay, and 1st Radio Battalion, Kaneohe, Marine Corps Air Station were just a few of the duty stations that he served at. He then, after working in the American embassies and State Department, you had a 23-year career in higher education, which included senior roles as associate dean, director, and executive dean at 2-year and 4-year universities in the U.S. and internationally. His BS in IT management from Wilberforce University and his MBAs from Walden University. And you've lived and worked in Africa, Europe, and Central America, as well as 11 years in the Middle East. And then you transitioned several theater plays, including 2266, about the abandonment of American POW and MIAs during the Vietnam War. General William C. Westmoreland attended the New York opening as the guest of honor. Other works include A Line in the Sand about the chemical contamination of thousands of U.S. troops in Desert Storm, and the killing of American higher education, about the corrupt student loan industry and its dirty connection to even dirtier politics, which I do want to talk about.
Absolutely.
Yes. That's a big issue for a lot of people right now, the student loan industry. So I would love to just dive a little deeper into that.
And there's so much misunderstood about it too, of how it's portrayed, of just people that don't want to pay their bill. But yes, I look forward to that.
Awesome. And then in 2021, you published C is for Corruption, an ABC book about American politics and where the weasels sing, a nonpartisan look at our elected officials. # they all suck. He is also the executive director, not founder, of Veterans Healing Farm, which provides space to veterans healing and camaraderie through beekeeping, organic farming, herb therapy workshop, and many more programs. The father of 6 adult children and Baba to a boatload more, he enjoys all things outdoors, hiking, hunting, fishing, lousy golf, live music. I just had so much fun reading this. Local artisans, foodie, and the ever-vibrant microbrewery scene in Western North Carolina. Welcome again, Alan.
Thank you, Teresa. I'm glad to be here. Happy to be here.
First off, I always have to start my conversations with what inspired you to join the Marine Corps and enter the service?
Well, so I was walking down the street in Dayton, Ohio, and at that time you had all of the branches together, and there were the blues in the window, and so I walked in, and then once you walk in, it had to be. So part of me also was in high school I was the captain of the football team. And not that can't go into special forces or any other branch, but again, there was just something about the Corps that drew me to it. And then, of course, all of the old movies about Iwo Jima and just the Corps being the best. So that's it. It opened the door, and it's like just sucked right in, and that was it.
How many years total did you serve?
I just did 3 years. I did
Okay.
3 years, and so it was started out Paris Island, and then down to NTTC Corey, Pensacola for training there, and then down to Guantanamo and then San Angelo Air Force Base for more training, and then over to First Radio when it was at Kaneohe.
How would you summarize, like, how would you describe your Marine Corps experience?
It was that's a good question. It's something that I look back, it's something I didn't necessarily appreciate at the time, because we're all 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, that went in at the time. And, the term that we use, the fond term for the Marine Corps was the suck. So it was, but I with all the branches, with all the, to have an 18-year-old be in charge of these things, or 19 or 20-year-old, that in the civilian world, the equivalent, you wouldn't touch for years, and you wouldn't touch probably without degrees or certifications and trainings and all of this. So the military gives that experience and gives it very well. And so in the Marine Corps, my field was special intelligence telecommunications. So I was operating the crypto equipment and the vans, and it was a time that I look back on with great pride. But at the time, like I said, we're at the, we're counting down 99 days, 30 days,
Sure.
To get out. But it was that experience. This is one of those things that I think it continues to happen in our lives if we recognize it. You can connect the dots backwards. It's hard to see what's coming up, but I can connect them all going backwards. So at that time, with the special intelligence, the crypto training, well, that opened the door for the State Department. And had I not done that, then I wouldn't have been in the State Department, and I wouldn't have had those travels throughout the world. And then after that, again, going back to in between, when I was looking at theater, there was in 2266, I met the wife of an Air Force officer who they took off out of Thailand, went on a mission. They're coming back. They fly in the clouds. They fly out, and a plane's missing. There was no explosion. There was no mayday. There was nothing. The plane's missing. So this person has spent the rest of her life not knowing, and it still continues, whatever happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of my looking into all of that was my view of honor and how we should, the active duty military in those situations should be treated and recognized. And so that went from there into the play 2266 that General Westmoreland came to. And that was a tremendous honor. And in the play, one of the lines is, don't believe everything you see on 60 Minutes. Well, at the time when I wrote that, I didn't understand that 60 Minutes had attacked Westmoreland, and Westmoreland sued him and won. And they had to apologize to him. But it was through my contact, whose husband went missing, who had a letter from Ronald Reagan, who talked about a rescue mission, and there was supposed to be an exchange of prisoners, and something happened on the other side, and it never happened. But so this view, and things will be declassified someday, but this view that we leave no one behind, which is you don't. But if you do, recognize it, state it, say what happened. Say that we're not going to go and lose another 58,000 people. I mean, but don't lie about it. And so that's been my through line. And part of that was my father was retired Air Force, World War II. He served in Burma, China, India on a B-25. And this was, so as a high school graduate, he's a lieutenant, and then a Silver Star, and then got out after World War II, recalled for Korea, and stayed in and retired in 1967 during Vietnam. So I was born at Edwards Air Force Base in California, and then grew up outside of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. My oldest brother was a chopper pilot in Vietnam, MASH chopper pilot. He met his wife of 54 years now, I think, in a MASH nurse in Vietnam. My next brother, Air Force, died in 1966. He was killed in a car wreck returning to base. My
Mm-hmm.
next brother was Army, 70, but he got sent to Korea. So, and then I went in the Marine Corps. So that's I've covered a lot of ground there. So
Yeah, I'm going to try to go back
yeah,
just to your service after the Marine Corps, and were you a foreign service officer with the State Department?
I was a communications officer. So I was a staff officer. So you have
Okay,
an FSO, which goes through all the tests and everything. And then,
sure.
then you'll have the people that run the embassy, an admin officer, a GSO. And I was a communications officer.
Gotcha, because you had the IT background, so then you
Yes.
went into that. What was tell me a little bit about what was it like serving for the State Department? Did you find that there was sort of that throughput of wanting to be truthful and sort of like you said, that thread that happened early on still go and infuse within your State Department work?
It did, absolutely, and continues to this day, to my own frustration, because oftentimes there are situations, or I mean, and it doesn't have to be one-on-one, it could be a national situation, that if I allow it, I can get upset about, but I have no influence over.
Yeah, you can't control it.
You can't control it. Yeah, so you just have, you learn that over the years. Otherwise, you would just be frustrated, or I would be frustrated every single day. So you just learn how to deal with that and let it go, and then do your best. But the State Department was an eye-opening experience for me, because here's this kid from Huber Heights, Ohio. Now I can remember Larry Williamson, who was my first ambassador in Libreville, Gabon. And Larry Williamson, Ambassador Williamson, started out in the United States Marine Corps as an enlisted person. And I just loved him, and he loved his Marines. But I remember this is so he invites a group of people over for dinner to his house. So I'm there, and so now maybe I'm 22, 23 at the time, and I remember, so it was steak, and I'm cutting my steak, and I flip the steak off on my lap, and I'm like, oh my God! Well, nobody sees it, so I pick it back up and I set it down. But it was a time where you're dealing with, you learn how, even though I wasn't a foreign service officer, nonetheless, you have to be diplomatic in all your interactions with the civilian population wherever you're at.
Oh yeah.
Then also I learned a tremendous amount about diplomacy and what that means, and how important it is in everyday life.
Right. And I think that was such a good primer for then you to now make this transition from the State Department. I mean, I've never met somebody that had so many different, actually I have. I mean, Scott Mann reminds me of you. I mean, he started as a Green Beret, and then he got into this mission of public speaking and coaching, which is sort of a good, natural fit. But then got involved in Afghanistan and ran this like underground railroad kind of thing on WhatsApp chat, helping Afghans get out of Afghanistan, to writing a play, starring in that play. Now he has another book called Nobody's Coming. I mean, you remind me of your path, and your journey is just very eclectic, I guess is the right word to say.
And it was one of those things that we as we talked about a little bit before, it wasn't a planned out thing. And that's why I can connect the dots backward. But if you want to ask me what the next dot is forward, I'm like, I don't know. But I've learned to embrace the I don't know part of it. That it's going to be okay no matter what it is. Whereas when I was younger, a lot of anxiety goes with the future, because you're so invested in trying to build things for yourself, for your family. But mine was just a different path.
And you were having, that's another thing. You were having kids. You had 6 kids along the way as all this was going on.
Yes, it was. So with that, it was 2 marriages, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But 2 marriages. So my first wife I met in Beirut during that 3-year during the Civil War, and one of my daughters is through that marriage. And then I met another person who had 4 kids, and then we had 1 together, but all of the kids were younger, and so I was dad for everybody. And that's what I want to point out is that When I was younger, when I had all the kids, I had a full head of hair, but then they became teenagers. I'm telling you, teenagers are terrible people. So just to make that clear to everybody.
They stress you out a little bit. Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. Having that many too, I can imagine was definitely an adventure in and of itself, beyond all the different transitions. So how long did you stay associated with the State Department? How many years?
The State Department then was 7 years. So after Gabon, and this is an important point about me. So my intent when I joined the State Department was to get to Beirut. And that's because in October of 1983, I woke up. I was probably out the night before drinking and, did White Castle at 3 a.m. and came home, went to bed, woke up, turned the news on, and the Marine barracks had just been bombed.
Alan, hold on just a second. I want to
Sure.
bring your attention to something. I have do I have it here? Where is it? There's a book that was just written. I was just going to grab it by Jack Carr about the Beirut. Are you following? Are you tracking that he just wrote a book about this?
No, I will now.
Yeah, if you Google, probably somebody in my audience can look it up. I know we've got a couple people joining on the call. I see both of you, Nicole, Emilio Casper. She says, incredible. Scott Mann is doing great work and definitely see that. And then Tracer Burnout, I think that's my friend Roger. He was mentioning to you pulling off the cap, the part about losing your hair. But I thought I had the book sitting on a shelf right here next to me because I can't remember the name of it. I was going to hold it, but I want to get right back into your story. But I want to let you know that there's a book that's just been written where they spoke to a lot of the survivors of that tragedy. And so you were there at the embassy when this happened.
No, I was actually, I had been out 1 year from the Marine Corps. So I turned on the news and there was
I see. That's when you see it.
The death of all my brothers blown up while they were sleeping.
Right.
And so I went into my mom's room and she was sleeping and I sat on the bed and I just started crying and that woke her up and she immediately thought, something that one of her family members or she didn't know what, but she just jumped right up. What? I said, they killed him, Mom. They were sleeping and they killed him. And so after that point, my mission in life was to get to Beirut and understand how these people could do this. And so my first tour in the State Department was Gabon. And when that was coming up, I was like, come on, it's similar to the service where you bid on positions, you bid on duty stations. And so my top one was Beirut and I got it. And so I arrived there in 1986. And this is, again, in the middle of the Civil War. You get off, the only way in and out was via Black Hawk helicopter from Nicosia, Cyprus, from Larnaca, Cyprus, where the airport was. And you landed on the embassy compound. And on the embassy compound was also, where you landed was the shell of the second embassy that was blown up. The first one was in West Beirut, and the next embassy was blown up in East Beirut after the Marines. So, you're back and forth via chopper, different schedules, different, it was all RPG protection, unpublished security. But so I land there. They give you a 357, they give you a right shotgun. And at this time, you could still drive on your own. You could go around, but there was the open market was the open market. So I picked up some CZ75s, AK-47, as did everyone. That's just, there's two types of people that went to Beirut. There was a 50% increase in pay, danger pay. It was the most dangerous posting in the State Department at that time. And then there were the cowboys. So you had money people and you had cowboys. And yeehaw. And all of the Marines and all of the diplomatic security people who were all former military, we all hung out together because that's what we were there for the same reason. My reason was to understand, but it was that this was, if you're in the State Department and you want in the action, this is where you go. And so it was a 1 year tour. And while I was there, it was a 1-year tour, and I did 3 1-year tours. And while I was there, it was numerous car bombs, east, west, shelling, kidnappings. I was there when Higgins was kidnapped and hung, Lieutenant Colonel Higgins. The envoy for the Archbishop of Canterbury kidnapped. All of that was going on. So it was which was why they had 1-year tours. It was for the stress of it. But I did 1 year, and at the time was Ambassador John Kelly was the first ambassador, and so my first 2 years it was him. And again, just a wonderful person that looked out for his people. Well, I did extended for a 3rd year, and that was because I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to prove to myself that I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, about the middle of the 3rd year, I feel this darkness, but I don't know what it is. I just know it's there, and it's coming in. And what I eventually learned is well, that was the beginning of PTSD, and but it wasn't identified for years.
No.
So after I left Beirut, I go to London for a little bit. They had the poll tax riots at the time, which was kind of funny because, and then after, well, it wasn't funny like that. It was funny because people were saying in the State Department, wherever I go, there's going to be trouble. So then I arrive in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, 2 weeks before Saddam invades Kuwait for the first Gulf War. And my 2-person comm shop goes 12 hours on, 12 hours off, 7 days a week. And eventually, and this is for months, and eventually the State Department sends us a 3rd person. That's all they, to do this 24-hour coverage 7 days a week. During that time, my daughter was born in Jeddah, the October before we while we were still doing the buildup, while it was still Desert Shield. But this goes back to, and then after that, I left the State Department to go back to school. But it wasn't. So for years now, I mean, I'm in the 1990s, and this was 86 to 89. So now I'm in the mid 90s, and I still don't understand what's wrong with me. And when I say what's wrong with me, it's like, where is this anxiety? And what we know is like right now, everything's fine. I mean, I've got a roof over my head. I'm fed. I'm warm.
Yeah.
Everything's good. So where is this coming from? And it was just last year I realized that PTSD has been my companion for 35 years through 2 marriages and my relationship with my kids. And it was something that so in the mid 90s, PTSD still wasn't a term being used.
No.
It was I think it was anxiety or something like that. Well, I wasn't a pill person, and I couldn't do it, and so I just continued to suffer, and really, and then eventually I found a doctor and who was working with me, and I did get on some meds that helped. And it wasn't like you hear some people that take meds and they're not themselves. It wasn't like that, but it was more meds without counseling masks problems. It doesn't address them. And it wasn't until I had a situation in higher education where a VP rushed me in my office about an argument. I mean, for nothing. It was. I still to this day I don't understand how this happened, but when he did that with his finger out, pointing at me, coming at me, and I blacked out. And I mean, it wasn't. I blacked out for a couple seconds, and went past him into the president's office. I said I don't have to take this shit, and went into the president's office. But from there, it was like, well, what do you want to happen? I go, mistakes happen. But I'm going to have counseling. And then, so for the first time, I went into counseling, and I went through, it was probably my 4th person. And then that was the person. So I want people to understand out there, if they've gone to counseling and it didn't work, Try again. If that doesn't work, try again.
Right.
And
I
it
mean,
was
it
for me,
takes a while. It does.
it does. And for me, it was EMDR.
Me too.
That really opened up the door. I mean, the floodgate of all this emotion. And so when I talk about PTSD for 35 years, there was anger inside, there was anxiety inside, unknown the cause of it. But when I'm dealing with my family, it was more I was withdrawn.
Yeah,
And it wasn't intentional.
I know.
It was just that I come back and I'm here instead of being out there with them all the time, engaged with them. I was withdrawn, and I look back on that. So it's not like it was a situation where I was actively hurting them, and they didn't know. They just knew Dad, and Dad sits in the background. Dad is withdrawn. Dad is, and then if something happens, then Dad takes over. But I look back on it, and I just understand that I wasn't there like I should have been.
There are so many people. In fact, I just had somebody even say EMDR for the win, saved me from my trauma with Bosnia. I mean, it's so true. And then someone else even said, loved your comment about regarding medication without therapy is a mask. And it's absolutely true. I'm so glad that you transitioned to PTSD and to anxiety and to trauma, because I really do feel that so many people would be benefited if they found the right counselor that they can trust, that like you said, isn't just going to hand out a pill, and then B, found a healing modality that works for them. For me, it was also EMDR. I realized that I basically was replaying the same dynamic that I had with my mother in various forms with various people all throughout my working career.
Yes.
And it wasn't until I started to take ownership of that and build boundaries around people who are emblematic of her that I started to see a shift. And I was able in real time, with one relationship in particular, to see a shift in the way in which I built a boundary around this person. And I was able to navigate that relationship in a much more healthy way, all because I had the benefit of EMDR. And it's just a shame that we're not offering these kind of modalities. Not just that. I mean, I've heard about ganglion block. I've heard about all these other ways in which people can heal.
Yes.
That don't involve pharmaceuticals. Not to say pharmaceuticals are bad. I know that they help a lot of people, but there's something to be said about what you just shared.
Well, that's the whole to jump straight to the Veterans Healing Farm. That's exactly what we do. Is we offer we cast a wide net of their actually therapies or therapeutic, because everyone's going to respond differently. So if someone comes to the farm let me back up. So the mission of the Veterans Healing Farm is to enhance the mental, emotional, and physical well-being of our nation's veterans and their families. And I emphasize families because there's a lot of great places out there that are doing things for veterans, a lot of great places. But if you're hurting and you come into the family unit, the whole family hurts. And so we take a holistic approach to that. And we cast that wide net of equine therapy, canine therapy, music therapy, art therapy, neurofeedback therapy. We'll do therapeutic, where it is the hands creating, which gets into mindfulness at that time, and then can lead to other things. But vegetable canning, jam making, blacksmithing. We'll do suicide prevention workshops. We'll do, as an example, last year we did 49 workshops for 479 participants. And we also brought in, so workshops are one of it. Then we do on what we call agritherapy. So it's the veterans working together, growing produce, growing flowers is one is under the agritherapy part. And because we're not a production farm, that the healing takes place being together outside, hands in the soil. The benefit of that is where the healing happens, that all the produce we grow, we give back to the veteran community or the local community. So we'll set up in front of Charles George VA Medical Center, and we give our produce away to those who take care of us and our brothers
I
and
love
sisters
that.
that have served. And then we also do that with, we have a honey group, honey team, led by a 22-year retired Coast Guard veteran. Same thing, those in the group take whatever honey they want, but otherwise we give it back. We have a medicinal herb squad that has 68 different medicinal plants in it that they process, and they'll make teas and tinctures and salves and balms. And all of this is free for the veterans and our veteran community, veterans, family members, caregivers, and volunteers, those that just want to help veterans. And the big three for veterans is anxiety, sleep disorder, and inflammation. And if we can use plant medicine to replace one pill from Pfizer, then it's this great victory. So we also teach them. And then we get into events. So we brought in the Traveling Vietnam Memorial Wall last year. We brought in the 9/11 Memorial Wall, and we had almost 4,000 visitors to the farm over a 4-day period. And that's where, I mean, it was, oh God, it was so incredible. There were Vietnam veterans who could never go to the wall in DC. Not that they physically or financially couldn't go, they couldn't go. They came to the wall there. And what I understood because I've been to the wall in DC, and when you're there, you understand that is sacred ground. Absolutely. Well, when you're looking at the traveling wall, wherever those 58,000 names are, that's sacred ground too. And the emotional, we had counselors from the VA, we had animal therapy all there in case it was needed for anyone at any time. And we were open 24 hours for those 7 days. It was completely for those 4 days, completely lit up. And it was just such a wonderful experience with our veterans and the community that were out there. We do agritherapy, the workshops, and then our events. And events also, we'll do live music throughout the summer. We'll be able to do more because we just moved into a new place.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about that. But before we just had like a covered deck kind of thing. And then when winter came, workshops had to end. And it was just, so the veterans were like, well, there's no continuity. We need that. And so before this year, last year, we started using coffee shops to run our workshops, and they were packed, going to the point of, they want to continue year round. And it's about the shared culture, the understanding of shared pain at times. As I mentioned to you, we don't ask for referrals. We don't ask for DD-214s. We want no barriers to prevent somebody from coming that first time. Come to the farm one time, and you don't have to do anything. But if you want to do stuff, we'll show you how to do it, and we'll work with you. And then before you know it, you're getting the piece of the farm plus that wide net of therapies and therapeutic things. And we've grown tremendously over the last 3 years.
You've only been around, I think, for a few years, right? When were you founded?
The farm was founded in 2013.
Okay.
And then, but in the last part of my background in higher ed was also continuing education. So I understand how to do the whole format of workshops and conferences, where it's just second nature to me. So before they would do maybe a beekeeping workshop over 2.5 days once a year, organic farming workshop, same format once a year. Whereas I was like, no, we've got to do more. We've got to engage constantly, or give that opportunity to be engaged. And so our veterans will come and go as they please, but we always have a set group that is always participating. Tomorrow we've got at our new place, we're not ready for anybody, but we're doing a bonfire, apple cider, cocoa. Maddie's making chili, and we're expecting about 50 veterans to show up for that.
I mean, it's such an innovative concept. I don't think there's anything else out there like it.
And what we do is I mean, if we were to try to do this all on our own, it would be millions a year. But so for equine therapy, we partner with Heart of Horse Sense in Marshall, and they bring their horses down 4 times a year for equine therapy. For canine therapy, we partner with Warrior Canine Connection, who brings their dogs. So we have all of these relationships that are out there of existing veteran organizations that are doing their thing, whereas we bring them all in throughout the year.
Sure.
And then on top of the agrotherapy and the events. And again, the events I forgot to mention also fly fishing, kayak trips, baseball games, hockey games. And again, it's that people know the term camaraderie as friendship, but we know it's so much deeper than that. And again, going back to that shared culture we have. I
love it. And I think that goes back to, I think what you're this organization and your involvement in it is emblematic of so many things that I've learned about you. I actually did a little guest research, and I saw that you were even looking into finding an organization at one point that brings together the left and the right, and finding that peace in the middle of two opposing viewpoints. And I think that, and finding that healing through that.
It is, because going back to just growing up in this country, I think there was a lot more middle than what has become over the last several years. And
sure.
And so there's a recognition that the middle works. Not all the time. There's some hard lines, but for the most part, at least let's talk in the middle,
right?
And recognize the similarities we have,
and the dialogue.
Celebrate our differences. And that
right.
was one thing that used to be it used to be said, just recognize your differences. No, that keeps two sides. Celebrate our differences, and that's not necessarily politically, but all the other demographics that can be out there, whether it's age, race, religion, whatever it may be. Celebrate those differences. Embrace your neighbor, embrace your brother and sister for who they are, and recognize the good in them, that they want to be just like the good that you want to be.
Absolutely. And share your story. Be out there with what it is that you have experienced and you have faced, and use those stories as an inspiration for others, because when you share, there is a weight and a burden, I feel, that's lifted as you are processing an experience and working through it and making sense of it. So that's beneficial to you. But then the other benefit is that someone else hears that story and then knows, A, they're not alone. They're not the only one who experienced that issue. And there is a path to healing and to growth. And then also, B, they have some camaraderie with you and with these shared experiences. And that is exactly what you're doing at Veterans Healing Farm, is that you're providing this place where people can meld their ideas together and come up with these best practices and move things forward. And so when you reached out to me, I knew it was a no-brainer to have you on and to talk about this.
Thank you. And it's just been so well received by the veteran community, because again, just the format of it. And it's been a great experience, and I look forward. Tell you what I want to do is I'd love to have this on a national scale, not as a franchise or anything, but a model and I would put it outside the largest VA in every state. And and that's something I didn't mention. I talked about that we donate vegetables and produce and flowers at the VA, but they'll send their psychologists, their interns, their chaplains, their suicide prevention people to the farm. So nice. We have this mutual understanding that they do what they do, but that's not the only way that someone can heal. And they recognize us, and we work well together, and it's very much appreciated.
That's wonderful. I mean, if anything I could contribute, as an active duty member, I wish that there were more programs like yours that even the active duty were participating in as well, because I do believe that outside of the medical environment, there does exist these other modalities. Now, to the military's credit, I'm learning as I've kind of diving back into more of the sailor world. I've been in joint environment, which was a much older community, and then NATO, much older community as well.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm back into an environment where I'm serving with a lot more younger people, and I'm on a base where there are a little bit more programs. There's now deployment resiliency counselors. There's different types of psychological teams that are not necessarily tied to medical, but even a farm where you can go out and work in the land and have that shared sense of teamwork with another person, I think is really valuable and something that we need to embrace.
And there's so many studies on the power of nature for healing.
Sure.
And across the board. So whether that's a hike up into the hills or anything, but so everything we do has a proven background of therapy or therapeutic help to it, non-pharmaceutical.
Yeah, it sounds like definitely there's these different ways of healing and growing through things. I was just reading about a leader in the kind of coaching space who's now bringing people out on historical trips, like going to Gettysburg and doing these like history lessons, and then bringing leaders and thought, people together that would never meet otherwise to come and like learn about these different experiences. And then what are the leadership lessons from some of these historic battles and some of these different military. So what you're talking about with the farm kind of reminds me of that, just this immersive experience with the land and with nature and with growth. And I think that a lot of people really will get some peace from that. Do you have some people that come to the farm that have been coming for years?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do. Yeah, just wonderful human beings too, and have. While they didn't start this way, you can see over time the shift to now when somebody comes in new, I can take this person over and I can say, "Hey, Mary, I want you to meet," and that because I would have already been talking, and I can walk away, and I know it's going to be fine because they have that same viewpoint of what the farm is and that it's always about the people. To jump back to what I had said about a new farm. So in January, we were told by the landowner that she was retiring and wouldn't be renewing our lease in August. So we had 7 months to find a new home. So, now we didn't want the veterans so we had our programming done for the year. We had more workshops than we did last year. So we were running workshops. We were looking for new property. We were fundraising like crazy to buy a new property as we were packing up and shutting down. So it was a very, very stressful time. But as I said to Megan last week, so it's basically the operations are basically, we have 2 full-time employees right now. Myself and Megan Landreth, who's a 10-year Air Force veteran, and also her husband was a 20-year retired Air Force, died of brain cancer. But she is and then we have part-time seasonal people that come on with our agricultural manager and our director of plant medicine and our beekeepers volunteer. But we want to expand to with a greenhouse, a heated greenhouse, hydroponics, and bring in those other people full-time too. So that's part of the plan. But so during this time, we looked, we must have looked at 40 different places during this time, and people were trying to give us land, but it was cornfields in floodplains. And I just, no, this isn't it. So the time came, we had to leave, and we did, and we still didn't have a place. And, but we had a lot of prayers going from the community. And one day in maybe the end of August, beginning of September, it pops up on a website, this property. So it was on a Friday. I emailed my realtor, and so we couldn't see it until Monday. Monday morning, I saw it. Monday afternoon, I emailed the board, said, this is it. Wednesday, they were out there. And then Wednesday afternoon, we were contacting banks. And it's 11.6 acres with a 2-acre spring-fed pond. And it is beautiful. And it was one of those things where we understand that bigger things were happening in the background that we didn't know. And because we had actually bid on another place and the person accepted a verbal offer and then accepted an all cash offer by somebody else. Wasn't meant to be. But this place is awesome. We move in there 10 days before Hurricane Helene hits. And so it was only last week we started focusing back on the farm. But after Hurricane Helene hits, our veteran community started going out. We were doing welfare checks. We were doing supply runs to Charlotte. We were doing cutting trees down. We were bringing supplies directly to the doors of people. So while the farm was there, we weren't at the farm. We were out doing those things. So now we're back and trying to get back on track, and we will, and we're doing it. Like I said, we're not ready for it. We have no furniture. The living room is filled with boxes and old tables and stuff. We've got a wonderful foundation that's going to be getting us furniture. We won't get it until December though, but it doesn't stop anybody. Just come on in. And again, with tomorrow with the bonfire and the chili, it's about being together. And then we'll start our programming back again soon.
I want to go to North Carolina and have bonfire and chili.
I want you to come and visit. I want everyone to come and visit. And with that said, I don't know, but it's veterans with an S, veteranshealingfarm.org is our website. During this time too, we had a group of 14 active duty Coast Guard people come in from Charleston to help, and they based out of the farm. And and it was just a wonderful group of coasties. And while they were there, we got an invite from a neighbor who made beef stew and cornbread and brownies for 18 of us, 19 of us at their home.
That's so wonderful.
It's been like that. And it's been a true, a lot of people, blessing is a word that can often be overused. So I'm very careful when I use it. But all of this experience for the Veterans Healing Farm has been a blessing. And at times, like when we had to leave, is it a curse? Just keep moving forward. Keep moving forward with faith and hope, and it worked out.
I love it. I love it so much. But before we get off the call, I want to jump into the student loan industry real quick.
Yes.
So I want to go back to that topic because it really fascinated me that you took that on. I actually read a book by John Grisham about it. He wrote it was a storybook, but it was basically a true fictional story that's really true to life or true to his research about this industry. And it kind of blew my mind open about what, sadly, the ways in which people are sort of, I think, maybe taken advantage of. But tell me a little bit about what your angle is on this issue.
This is someone 23 years in higher education. I can guarantee people are taken advantage of, because no one holds higher education accountable for mismanagement. So you'll have a president who will hire a vice president who will hire an associate vice president, who will then hire an executive dean, who will hire a dean, who will then. So you've got this middle staff, and the amount of money that it costs to go to school today. So in the 70s, so I graduated high school in 1979. I could have gone to state school for free, or for very limited. It would have been, I don't know, $20 a credit hour or something like that. Which even at that time, the litmus test was you could work a summer job and pay for a year of college every year. So no one left college with debt. It wasn't until Congress, there was a couple congressmen, a congressman and a senator, who were worried about, well, think of who Congress is. They were worried about doctors and lawyers not repaying their student loans debt. So they started the process of making student loans non-dischargeable in bankruptcy. So now as it continues, it wasn't until 2003 where everything was taken away from it. That no matter what the reason, no matter the number of the years, no matter anything, a student loan cannot be discharged. So it's a lifelong debt. It's the only one like it. What happened from the state schools to that time, as this became undischargeable, the private institutions
Yep.
the not-for-profit privates.
That's what his book was about. John Grisham's book was all about a private institution for lawyers. And it was just awful about how in ways in which they found ways to just basically make up the system, make up the classes, make up the curriculum, everything, all because of the loan industry.
That's it. And it's still a powerhouse. And the loan industry is also, they pump tons of money back into the political machine that does not address the student loan industry or higher education. So it's become this terrible. I mean, so what do we need in this country? Social workers, teachers. So you get a 4-year degree in one of those, and you'll leave with $100,000 debt, and you'll start out at $32,000 a year.
Right, you're never going
to pay it off.
No,
but they count on that.
And what they'll do is they'll charge just interest upon interest, and people are just paying. They're not paying the principal; they're just paying the interest. And the student loan companies are becoming very profitable, very rich off of this.
Oh, tremendously wealthy. I can remember it was trying to think of which outfit it was. It wasn't Sallie Mae, or maybe it was Sallie Mae, and the CEO took all of the top executives. But I mean, this is like over 100 and their family members to Hawaii as a bonus. And whereas when you look at other countries, Germany, that you can get your doctorate that they recognize the importance of education and higher education as building infrastructure for the country, building that intellectual capital for the country. We have it now as a corporate tool. And so I feel so sorry for those people entering college now and the cost of it. And just the student loan industry is so dirty.
Well, and I mean, there are so many careers and good paying jobs that don't even require college. I mean, we really need to start emphasizing and bringing back the value of skilled trades, because being able to actually do something and have a skill, that's not to negate doctors and lawyers and teachers, because that's a skilled trade in of itself and does need higher education. But there are a lot of trades out there that can be sought in other ways that I do think need to be available in a way that is not cost prohibitive.
Absolutely. And so this is, the nation has sold this line of a 4-year degree, of the need for it, no matter what it is. Now, I don't know if this is in every state, but I can tell you it's been in 2 states that I've lived in. High school counselors are graded upon the number of 4-year placements that they make. Not community colleges, not 1-year certificate programs.
That's
nothing.
Ridiculous.
They keep their jobs by sending students to 4-year institutions, and it's ridiculous. And meanwhile, the number, all of the trades that you can get out and make a great living on are continue to decline. And then what I've also found, because so if you're going to school, community college is still the value, but it still has this, there are adults out there that won't send their kids to community college. But here's the deal with it. You can go to 2 years of community college for a fraction of the price of a 4-year, take all your gen eds that transfer to a 4-year.
Exactly.
So a 4-year is recognizing the value of them.
Yep.
Yet you as a parent are going to pay triple, quadruple.
Yeah, like why would you even do that?
Exactly.
Like, why would you even want to just incur that? For the college experience? It's ridiculous.
It is,
but it's ridiculous, and it's just a way to make money for the higher education. And again, I'm speaking in broad strokes. I mean, there are wonderful people in all these organizations that do these things, but it doesn't necessarily negate the purpose behind reforming certain industries. And so I was just very bought into it myself. I went into college thinking like it was going to be the end all be all once I had that degree. And then I went into getting my graduate degrees the same way. And and now I'm where I am today. And I can really look back on all those things and say they were good networking opportunities. I mean, that's really the biggest thing I took away from them, is that I met some really great people, and we learned together. But memorizing random information so I can regurgitate it on a test, it really, it's of marginal benefit. Where I really feel like I learned my trade as a communicator was by doing the art of communications, and doing the things on social media, doing podcasts like this one, things like that is what really made me into the communicator that I am, not necessarily my education.
And I think with the advances of technology today, and that so much information is at our fingertips,
Right.
that it's the format used for the gen eds and for whatever is the same that it's always been, and that hasn't been addressed.
No.
Well, maybe you don't need to know that, because I can give you the answer in about 6 seconds.
Right. I can look it up on Google. Maybe I
Yeah.
need to think critically. Maybe I need to, and especially my field is a very kind of squishy field in and of itself anyway. So it's just, it makes it difficult for those to quantify. I think looking back, what I think I would have really benefited from truly was understanding the art of storytelling. Like, I wish that there had been a course in my communication studies that really got into the body of a story, and
Yes.
then really graded me on being able to tell a story in different mediums. Okay, this is how you do it in a short form clip. This is how you tell a story in a long, what we're doing here, a longer form podcast, or midterm, I guess, because I'm not, the 3-4 hour podcast. But that would be more valuable as a communicator, is understanding, okay, you can communicate through a post, you can communicate through a story, like a press release or a media story. That would have been more beneficial. And then being graded on how compelling it was, or how did it resonate, or did it hit, things like that. But we're not, that's not how it was. It was more, what is this communication theory, and can you spit it back out and relate it to something? It didn't, I don't sense that it was really what made me into the professional that I am. I think it was more my experience on the job.
Oh, I completely agree. And that's where because I graduated high school, went in the service, and then the State Department, it wasn't until after that I came back to higher education. So I had a wealth of experience that I brought into the classroom, to where I was able to, you still have to do what they say. You still have to,
Sure.
you still have to take the classes and all of that, but it was a different viewpoint and it was the recognition of, well, I'll never use this again, but they're requiring me to take it, so I've got to take it. And I think if to teach critical thinking to the extent of no matter who you are, you should understand you should be a lifelong learner, and that those opportunities there's more outside of the classroom than you will ever do within a classroom, and to recognize those opportunities when you're going through your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Alan, it's been amazing just sitting down and talking to you, and learning more about the Veterans Farm, learning more about you. I feel like I can't believe we're already at the top of the hour. This is one of those conversations or podcasts where the time just got the best of us. But is there anything else that you wanted to touch upon that we just didn't get to address?
I just for the farm, what I want to say is, we are in Mills River, North Carolina, and North Carolina was devastated by Hurricane Helene. I live in Asheville. I work in Mills River. Asheville still, I boiled my water to do my dishes. We have water to flush, but not water to drink or bathe in yet. And it's been a long time. And there's other areas that are completely wiped out. And I don't know if they'll ever account for all of the missing people at all, between the mud and the forests that take them. But so what has happened is we mailed out our fall donation letters, and they arrived the day before Helene hit. And so with everything going on, we are not going to get the donations we need to survive. And that's not, I would never compete with a family that lost their home but because I'm the executive director for the institution, and every we run completely on donations. We get the occasional grant, but otherwise it's individual donations. And we qualified a couple of years ago for the combined federal campaign. So Veterans Healing Farm, if you put that in the combined federal campaign.gov, will come up. And if people could give $10 a month, $20 a month, it would make a huge impact to us. So I'm reaching outside of our normal support area, because the support that's needed for businesses, for people just trying to live is like it has never been. And so I'm looking everywhere. I say I never go by a Coke machine without checking for change for the farm, but I did want to mention that now. And also, you can go to the veteranshealingfarm.org, and there's a donate tab there.
Okay, definitely. Thank you so much, Alan.
I have one other thing.
Go ahead.
I found this today. This is a spatula. It's a tiny spatula, but in honor of you, Teresa, I just want to.
Well, look, you're thinking of me. You're thinking of the Navy. I mean, Marine Corps pride. I mean,
that's right. So I can't wait to whip up a batch of cookies.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Alan. I will put myself on full screen after this, and then just say goodbye to you backstage. But appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming on the Stories of Service podcast. And I wish you and all the people who've been impacted by Hurricane Helene all the best in healing and getting through this difficult time, and getting the support that you guys need in order to move forward.
Thank you, Teresa, and thank you for the opportunity to be on the show. You're doing wonderful things. Keep it up. Please keep it up. There's a lot of people out there that you're helping. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys, another amazing podcast. If you would like to have more information about it, please go to Veterans Healing Farm. If you put Veterans Healing Farm in Google or wherever you search for websites, it comes right up. And they're doing amazing work that I highly, highly recommend you look into. And that's all I have for tonight. As I always say when I close out these calls, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye now.